Hi, this is Mike Woods, founder of Relational Crisis Prevention. I'm the father of 3 boys on the autism spectrum. That makes me their caregiver. I have a master's degree in conflict management. I'm a crisis prevention instructor. I'm a board certified associate behavior analyst. And my desire with relational crisis prevention is to give you, the caregiver, the information and skills that you need to manage challenging behaviors, whether they're from your child who's on the autism spectrum or has some other special need, or if you have an adult dependent parent with dementia or Alzheimer's. I want to share with you the information that you need to help you resolve, prevent, de-escalate crisis behaviors so that you can have more peace and quiet and joy in your house. This positive support strategy today is on a visual task sequence. A visual task sequence is a positive support strategy that's a critical component of a structured environment. A visual task sequence will help your care receiver organize and sequence a task that's related to cooking or laundry or grooming, a variety of tasks that you can envision that are needed to become independent around your house. A visual task sequence is a positive support strategy that's important for your care receiver because it does a couple of things. One, it helps to address your care receiver's difficulty with sequential memory and organization. 2, it assists your care receiver with language comprehension barriers that prevent them from understanding what to do. And 3, it lessens the anxiety level of your care receiver, thus reducing the possible occurrence of challenging behaviors. A visual task sequence is a relatively easy positive support strategy to use, but one that's very, very effective for a wide variety of care receivers. Let's take a look at an example of what a visual task sequence would look like for brushing your teeth. So to picture the task of brushing your teeth pictorially or visually, you would have pictures of putting on toothpaste, wetting the toothbrush, then brushing your teeth. Don't forget, you need to brush your tongue, then rinse, then spit, and then dry your mouth. This is a visual sequence of a task called brushing your teeth. Let's take a look at another visual task sequence for washing your hands. Again, here you see a series of pictures that represent the task of washing your hands. And the pictures, of course, are a visual reference for someone to be able to identify or to help organize, remember, or sequence what needs to be done in the process of washing one's hands. You wet your hands, you soap your hands, you rinse your hands, turn the water off, and then dry your hands. A fairly easy positive support strategy, right? So how do you make a visual task sequence? This is really, really simple. The first thing that you want to do is conduct what's called a task analysis. Now, in the field of applied behavioral analysis, a task analysis is a technical term, but you know what it means? All it means is take a look at the steps that you would do for any particular sequence. In the previous slides, we saw the steps that were involved in brushing your teeth or washing your hands. That's a task analysis. Someone took the time to say, if I were going to brush my teeth or wash my hands, what are the individual things that I would have to do? So you're doing nothing more than identifying the steps that are involved in the task that you want to make a visual task sequence for. So the easiest way to do a task analysis is by doing the task yourself. So do the task yourself. Write down each and every step that you had to go through for doing that task. Then go grab your digital camera and take a picture that represents each step that you wrote down in that task. And that's all there is to doing a task analysis. So you've done your task analysis, you wrote down the steps that were involved, and you took pictures of each and every one of those steps. The second part in making a visual task sequence is easier than the first part. You have to gather together your supply list. That's going to involve the pictures that you took. Second thing that you need, paper. Just regular old 8.5 by 11-inch plain paper. And you're going to use one sheet of paper for each visual task sequence that you want to create. Don't try to put two visual task sequences on one piece of paper. Only use one visual task sequence for each piece of paper. That's going to work out a whole lot better. The next thing that you need is some type of adhesive, whether it's Velcro or glue or tape, it doesn't really matter, but you're going to apply that adhesive into two different locations. One is you're going to put a piece of Velcro or glue or tape on the back of each individual picture, and then you want to stick that picture on your piece of paper. Now remember in the examples, we went from left to right in the order or sequence of the steps that are required for that task. So you're going to use Velcro, glue, or tape. You're going to put it on the back of your picture, and if need be, you're also going to put it on the piece of paper, because all you're doing at this point is making sure that that picture adheres to that paper using some type of adhesive in the sequential order of that task. And then the last thing that you need is lamination. Now, you could buy presentation page protectors. That would work. You could buy that clear contact paper, and that's going to be like at any office supply type of store, possibly even a Walmart or Target or a place like that. I prefer to use a lamination machine in order to laminate my visual task sequence. Lamination machines are often found in schools, churches, or you can go to a place like Office Max or Office Supply Depot. Typically they have a lamination machine that you can use, and they'll just charge you a small amount of money per page that you want to laminate. And the reason that you want to laminate your visual task sequence is because that lamination is going to make that a very sturdy piece of paper. If you just glued the pictures to the paper, the problem that you would run into is it could be easily torn, it could be easily crumpled up. When you laminate the visual task sequence after you've done the previous steps, it's a very durable, usable product that you can use time and time again. So the location of the visual task sequence should be wherever that task needs to be conducted. When I was using a visual task sequence to teach my sons how to brush their teeth, where do you think that visual task sequence was located? If you said in the bathroom by the sink, give yourself 10 points, because that's exactly where I had it. Likewise, though, when I was using a visual task sequence to teach them the steps in getting dressed, that was located in their bedroom on their dresser drawer, so that it was easily accessible by me to show them how to use it. And so the visual task sequence, that laminated visual task sequence that you have, should be located in the area in which that task is going to occur. If it's a task that occurs in a variety of areas, then you just need to make sure that it's easily transportable from one location to the next, or you could make multiple copies of one and just have it in each location that you need. The next thing that you need to do is to teach how to use the visual task sequence to your care receiver. You know, like any new concept, using a visual task sequence is something that you need to teach your care receiver. For an individual with little or low verbal understanding, you can do this by placing the visual task sequence in their hands so that they can see it. And as you point to each picture in the sequence of the task, you want to gently physically prompt them from behind to go through each and every one of those steps. For individuals with more verbal skills, you can explain briefly the concept of the visual task schedule. So there's a variety of ways that you can do that. As the days go on, you want to monitor how your care receiver is doing. Once your care receiver is using the visual task schedule, notice whether they are independent in using it. The next thing that you want to do is to make changes in the format of the visual task sequence if needed. If you've been teaching your care receiver the visual task sequence for a couple of weeks and find that there's no progress in independence, then that may be a sign that you need to modify the visual task sequence. You may need to reduce the number of pictures that are on there. You may need to increase the number of pictures on there. In other words, your visual task sequence might need to be less detailed. Chances are it might need to be more detailed than you initially thought. No problem. You look at the steps that you didn't write down. You write those down. You take the pictures. You add those pictures in the proper location of that sequence, and that's how you modify that schedule. So you can do that in a variety of ways, but you want to monitor over the course of time if they're gaining independence in using this, because ultimately that's your goal. And let me quickly just wrap this up by talking about where on the crisis escalation route this positive support strategy of a visual task sequence is most effective. It's very effective to use in the tension phase. And remember that tension phase is the phase at which your care receiver is starting to become a little bit stressed, a little bit anxious, a little bit tense because something is not going well in their environment. Well, that something could be they don't know the sequence of something that they're being asked to do or that they're required to do. And so this visual task sequence is a great positive support strategy to use at this particular phase of the crisis escalation route. The next phase of the crisis escalation route in which a visual task sequence is very useful is in the refusal phase. Remember, in the refusal phase, your care receiver is now refusing to do what they're being asked to do. Again, that could be because there's a lack of understanding of what to do or an inability to remember in what sequence to do something. So again, the visual task sequence is a great positive support strategy to use at this particular phase of the crisis escalation route. And then it's also very useful during the calm down phase. And that's the phase in which the crisis is over. Your care receiver is starting to calm back down. He or she is starting to become more rational. And we talked about the response at this particular phase as being one of negotiation, working something out with your care receiver. Well, this is one of the tools, this is one of the positive support strategies that you can use to work out with them. What will we do next time when this problem arises? We'll use a visual task sequence. And that's a great positive support strategy that you could use for the calm down phase. I hope that you've enjoyed this presentation. If you would like to see more of them or the other things that we're talking about in relation to relational crisis prevention, go to my website, www.relationalcrisisprevention.com.